Here's something most people don't realize about the food sitting in their fridge right now. The way you reheat it might matter just as much as what it is in the first place. I mean that. We spend so much time thinking about what we eat. Is it healthy? Is it fresh? Is it the right portion? And almost no time thinking about what happens to that food after it's been cooked once, cooled down, and then warmed back up again. But for a handful of everyday foods, that second trip to the microwave or the stovetop isn't just a matter of taste. It can actually work against you. Now, before you panic and start clearing out your leftovers container, take a breath. This isn't about fear. It's not about telling you that your fridge is secretly dangerous or that you've been doing everything wrong your whole life. Most of us grew up in households where waste not, want not was practically gospel. Reheating leftovers is smart, it's frugal, it's often the responsible thing to do. This video isn't asking you to stop. What it is asking you to do is get a little more specific, because as we get older, our bodies are simply less forgiving than they used to be. Our digestive systems, our immune responses, even our gut bacteria, they don't bounce back from a rough night the way they did at 25. So the same plate of reheated food that barely registered as a blip in your 30s can hit differently now. That's not a reason to be scared of your kitchen. It's a reason to be a little smarter in it. And that's really the whole idea behind this channel, isn't it? Nothing here is about treating aging like some slow-motion disaster you can't do anything about. It's about noticing the small, fixable things, the habits hiding in plain sight, and adjusting them so you feel better longer. Reheating safely is about as small and fixable as it gets. 5 minutes of awareness and you close a gap most people never even knew was open. So here's what we're doing today. I'm going to walk you through 5 foods that deserve a little extra caution when it comes to reheating. Not foods you need to throw out, not foods you need to fear, just foods where the why matters enough that it's worth understanding. For each one, I'll explain what's actually happening at a biological level when you reheat it, what the research generally points to, and most importantly, exactly what to do instead, so you're not left thinking, okay, so what am I supposed to eat for lunch now? And I want to give you a little preview because the one at the very top of this list, the one we'll get to at the end, genuinely surprised me when I first learned about it. It's a food most people consider one of the safest, most boring things in the fridge, something you'd never think twice about warming up. But there's a specific reason it behaves differently than you'd expect once it's been sitting around. And by the time we get there, I think you'll never look at it the same way again. Before we dive in though, I want to ask you something, because this channel only works if it's actually a conversation and not just me talking at a screen. Down in the comments, I'd love to know, when you think about your own kitchen habits, is reheating leftovers just a normal part of your week? Are you someone who cooks once and eats for 3 days, or do you tend to make things fresh each time? There's no right answer here. I'm just genuinely curious who's watching, and it helps me know what to cover next. So take 10 seconds, drop a comment, even just your age and whether this is a habit for you. It genuinely helps. All right, let's get into it. 5 foods that deserve a second look before you reheat them, counting down to the one that might just change how you think about your fridge for good. Let's start at number 5, mushrooms. Mushrooms are one of those foods that feel almost weightless, nutritionally speaking. Low calorie, high in nutrients, a favorite for anyone watching their heart health or their weight. But mushrooms have a unique protein structure, and that structure starts to break down the moment they're cooked. Think of it like a piece of fruit that's already started to bruise. Once that process begins, every additional hour at room temperature and every additional round of heating and cooling gives bacteria more opportunity to move in and start multiplying in that broken down protein. Nutrition scientists generally agree that mushrooms sit in a category of food that's more sensitive to temperature fluctuation than something sturdier like a root vegetable. The concern isn't the reheating itself, it's what happens in between. If mushrooms sit out at room temperature for a while after cooking, then go into the fridge, then get reheated a day or two later, you're essentially giving bacteria multiple windows to grow before that final blast of heat tries to knock them back down. And here's the thing about older digestive systems. They're simply less equipped to shrug off that kind of bacterial load the way a 20-year-old's gut might. So what do you actually do? It's simple. If you're cooking mushrooms, try to get them into the fridge within about an hour of cooking, not after they've sat out through a long dinner and cleanup. And when you do reheat them thoroughly, not just a quick zap until they're lukewarm. Many people in this situation find that treating mushrooms almost like seafood, refrigerate promptly, reheat fully, don't push past a couple of days, solves the issue completely without giving up one of the most nutrient-dense foods on the planet. You don't have to stop eating mushrooms, you just have to stop treating them like they're as forgiving as a bowl of rice. Which, funny enough, brings us right up against the food we'll circle back to later, because rice has its own surprising story. Number 4. Chicken. This one tends to raise eyebrows because chicken feels like the safest protein in the fridge. It's lean, it's popular, it's the default healthy choice at almost every dinner table. But chicken's density is exactly what makes it reheating tricky. Unlike a thin piece of fish or a leafy vegetable, chicken, especially a thicker cut like a breast or a thigh, doesn't heat evenly all the way through in a quick reheat. You can end up with something that's steaming hot on the outside and still lukewarm at the center, which is precisely the temperature zone where bacteria are happiest. The mechanism here is pretty intuitive once you picture it. Heat needs time to travel to the center of dense protein. A microwave especially tends to heat unevenly, hot spots and cold spots right next to each other. Research on food safety consistently points to this uneven heating as one of the more common causes of reheating-related stomach upset, particularly with poultry. And for those of us over 55, a case of food-related stomach upset isn't just an uncomfortable day. It can mean dehydration risk, disrupted sleep, and a much longer recovery than it would take a younger person. The fix doesn't require you to give up leftover chicken. It just requires a little more intention. Cut larger pieces into smaller portions before reheating so heat can reach the center more evenly. If you're using a microwave, stir or rotate halfway through. And if you have a food thermometer sitting in a drawer somewhere, this is exactly the moment to use it. You're looking for the center of the chicken to reach a proper steaming hot temperature all the way through, not just warm to the touch. It's common to notice that once people start doing this, cutting portions smaller, checking the center, reheated chicken stops feeling like a gamble and starts feeling like just another easy weeknight meal again. 2 down, 3 to go. And I promise you, the next ones on this list get even more interesting. Number 3. Rice. I mentioned we'd circle back to this one, and here's why it deserves its own spot on the list rather than just a footnote under mushrooms. Rice is unique among the foods we're talking about today because the risk isn't really about the reheating at all. It's about what happens to rice while it's just sitting there, cooked, waiting to be eaten or stored. Here's the mechanism, and it's a genuinely interesting one. Raw rice can carry a hardy type of bacteria that survives the cooking process. Heat doesn't fully eliminate it the way it does with most other bacteria. What that means is that once rice is cooked, if it sits out at room temperature for an extended stretch, those surviving bacteria start to multiply and, more importantly, produce a toxin. And here's the part that trips people up. Reheating rice thoroughly kills the bacteria itself, but it does not destroy the toxin those bacteria already produced while the rice was sitting out. So you can reheat rice until it's piping hot, and if it's sat out too long beforehand, that reheating step doesn't actually undo the damage. Food safety researchers generally point to this as one of the more well-documented reheating risks out there, precisely because it's counterintuitive. People assume hot enough always means safe, and with rice, that's not the whole story. The good news is that the fix is almost entirely about timing, not about giving up rice. Many people find that simply cooling rice quickly, spreading it out on a plate for a few minutes rather than leaving a full pot to cool slowly on the stove, and getting it into the fridge within about an hour makes an enormous difference. From there, reheating it thoroughly, just once, is perfectly fine. It's not that rice is dangerous, it's that rice has one specific window of vulnerability, and once you know where that window is, it's easy to close. Number 2. Leafy greens like spinach. This one surprises people because greens feel like the safe side of the plate, the thing you add more of, not less. But spinach, along with other leafy greens, naturally contains compounds called nitrates. On their own, nitrates aren't something to worry about. They're in tons of vegetables, and in the right context, they're even linked to healthy blood flow. The issue is what happens when cooked spinach is reheated, especially more than once. Repeated heating can convert some of those nitrates into a different compound that your body has to work harder to process, and that conversion tends to accelerate the more times the spinach cycles through cold storage and reheating. It's less about one reheat and more about repetition. A big batch of cooked spinach that gets portioned out, reheated a little each day for 4 or 5 days, is a different situation than spinach that's cooked and eaten within a day or two. Nutrition scientists generally suggest treating leafy greens as a cook what you'll eat soon category, rather than a make-ahead staple that lasts all week. It's common for people to switch to cooking spinach in smaller batches more often, rather than a one big Sunday batch, and to notice they simply feel better doing it that way, without losing any of the convenience of having greens ready to go. Now, if this has been useful so far, if you're the kind of person who likes knowing the why behind these everyday habits, this is exactly the moment to hit that like button. It genuinely helps this video reach other people who are standing in their kitchen right now wondering the same things you were 10 minutes ago. Because we're about to get to the one I promised you back at the start. The food that seems like the most harmless thing in your fridge, and honestly might be the one most worth understanding. I was surprised. I think it's going to surprise you too. And here we are, number 1, and the one I promised you back at the beginning because it genuinely changed the way I think about my own fridge. Eggs. I know, out of everything on this list, eggs are the one people least expect. They feel simple, sturdy, the kind of food that seems almost indestructible. But eggs, specifically dishes made with eggs like a frittata, a quiche, scrambled eggs, or anything with hard-boiled eggs mixed in, behave differently than the other foods on this list, and the reason comes down to protein density combined with moisture. Here's the mechanism. Eggs are almost pure protein and fat, with very little of the fibrous structure you'd find in a vegetable or the density you'd find in a thick cut of meat. That makes them uniquely prone to uneven heating, similar to chicken but more extreme because egg proteins are so sensitive to temperature that they can go from perfectly reheated to rubbery, dried out, or unevenly warmed in a matter of seconds. That unevenness creates the same problem we talked about with chicken. Pockets that reach a safe temperature right next to pockets that never quite get there. Except with eggs, that inconsistency happens faster and is harder to visually detect because eggs don't look undercooked the way raw chicken obviously does. Food safety experts generally treat egg dishes with the same level of caution as poultry. Some would say slightly more, precisely because people tend to underestimate them. And here's what really surprised me when I first learned this. It's not really about whether you reheat eggs, it's about how. A quick zap in the microwave, done carelessly, is honestly one of the least reliable ways to reheat eggs safely because of how unevenly microwaves distribute heat through that dense, moisture-rich protein. So what's the actual fix? It's simpler than you'd think. If you're reheating egg dishes, do it low and slow rather than fast and hot. A covered pan on low stovetop heat or a lower power setting in the microwave with stirring in between gets heat time to travel evenly instead of blasting the outside while the center lags behind. Many people find that once they slow down that reheating process just slightly, the texture actually improves too. Less rubbery, more like freshly made. It's one of those rare cases where the safer choice and the tastier choice are exactly the same choice. And that really is the thread running through everything we've covered today. None of these 5 foods are things to fear. None of them mean you need to overhaul how you cook or start treating your kitchen like a hazard zone. What they mean is that a few small adjustments, cooling food a little faster, reheating a little more evenly, paying attention to timing instead of just temperature, can quietly protect you from the kind of stomach upset that at this stage of life isn't just an inconvenience. It can knock you off your feet for days. It can interfere with sleep, with energy, with the plans you actually want to be present for. Because that's what this is really about, isn't it? Not rice, not chicken, not eggs. It's about showing up fully for the people and moments that matter to you, without a 5-minute kitchen habit quietly working against you. That's the whole spirit of aging well, not chasing perfection, just closing the small gaps that are easy to close once you know where to look. Now, a quick and honest note before we wrap up. Everything in this video is general food safety information, not personal medical advice. If you have specific health conditions, a compromised immune system, or concerns about food safety in your own situation, it's always worth checking with your doctor. They know your history in a way no video ever could. So that's it for today. 5 foods, 1 small shift in awareness, and hopefully a fridge that feels a little less mysterious than it did 20 minutes ago. As always on this channel, small changes, real results, and the life you get to feel good in. That's the goal. Always has been. If this helped you, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Share it with someone in your life who reheats their leftovers a little too casually. You know exactly who I mean. And down in the comments, tell me which one of these 5 surprised you the most. I read every single one. I'll see you in the next video.